I'm Evan Williams, and this will be another kind of very spontaneous talk. And we'll call this one Keeping Your Options Open. Now, where does this all come from? I have so many friends and so many young people that I work with every day, and so many students that are just graduating university. And I ask them, simply what they're going to do. And they all have this very serious and very structured plan. Like, first I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to get this degree, and then I'm going to law school, and then I'm going to work with, my father in the law office. I said, well, this is good. Everything's all planned out. This is wonderful. But then there are people who they keep their options very open. And so by keeping themselves open, they open up themselves, or they become transparent for something transcendent. They become really transparent, meaning they open themselves up for something, kind of great can happen, something very surprising, something out of the ordinary, something that you can't even plan yourself because, it has yet to happen. And so there are those who have great plans from their life and they have the whole thing mapped out. And there are those who kind of keep their options like very, very open. And one of my friends that has done this is Vitalik, who lives down in Alushta in Crimea. And at first he was the most unusual character I've ever met. When I met him, I didn't speak a word of Russian, he didn't speak a word of English, and we would go mountain hiking together. And he would be telling me stories the whole time. And I would just be nodding my head, be like, yes, very interesting. I didn't understand a word he was saying. It was only later, after 3 or 4 years, well, after 2 years, yeah, I understood what he was saying. And then I started to get in really, deeper conversations with him after 3 or 4 years, and we became best friends. And he's somebody that, he's always kept his options open, almost to the extreme, that he doesn't do anything unless he feels physically drawn to do it, or if something actually drags him out of the house. Sometimes he spends weeks just walking the streets, looking for something wonderful to happen. And it's turned out that he's been one of the luckiest people I've ever met. And all of these good things keep happening to him. And it's not really something that, I'm not sure if it's something that, he does, but he looks for these things to happen. And so just by thinking about them, just by walking through the streets of Alushta and thinking something really special is going to happen, that I just have to figure out, where and when, it's funny that it ends up so many times happening to him. And I could just tell you story after story about these things that are happening to Vitalik. The heavens are showering just joy and everything, whether it be money or food or happiness or something. It's just being showered onto Vitalik. And it's being showered onto him, but it's not being showered on other people. And this is the great mystery. Why is that? Vitalik, he's not very driven. He's not very career-driven. He's never had a very clear plan, for his life. But I would say the overall quality that he has is that he doesn't worry. He never worries about, where his food or shelter is going to come from. He doesn't think, oh, what am I going to do 5 years in the future? How am I going to have enough money to retire? He doesn't even think, worry about this, about months in the future. And, he's a family man now. He has a wife and he has a child, and still he doesn't really bother himself about these questions. He just trusts that it's going to be provided, or he knows that it's going to be provided, and he doesn't know how, but he knows that it will be. And the mystery is that it actually always is. So he's somebody that lives with very little stress. You never see him, tugging his hair out because, I don't know, the Soviet Union collapsed or something, or the economy has gone way down. These things don't really mean anything to him. Let it go down. Let it go up. let the Soviet Union come back and collapse again. Do you understand what I'm saying? He's almost in a place that is above these things, and that these things they can't touch. That's where he is. He's at a place where he can't be touched. And it doesn't matter whether you believe or whether you don't believe. You have to look at the result. And so whatever it is he's thinking about, it makes him feel really good. And it makes the people that are around him feel also really good. So we have to start to think, like, whoa, what exactly is he thinking of? This is all secondary. The fact is that he has this certain kind of attitude, and it's a very good attitude that brings very good results. Because his thinking is, for the most part, quite positive. He's looking for good things to happen. What I'm trying to say is this: before he goes into a day, or before he throws himself into an unknown situation, just like taking one of you, and I were to take you and I drop you off in Beijing, and I say, okay, you're going to live here for 2 years, and none of you speak Chinese. So the idea, or the mentality of Vitalik is a lot like the book The Brothers Karamazov, where you have the character Alyosha. And Dostoevsky said Alyosha was one of these characters, kind of like Vitalik, where if you take him and you drop him off in the middle of a big city, where he has no friends and he doesn't speak the language, what would happen to him? The fact is that 98 to 99% of the people in this world would have a panic attack. Their hearts would be beating 1,000 miles an hour. They would be sweating, fear, and they would be in a horribly uncomfortable situation, and they would want to go home immediately. But to a person like Vitalik, there is no home. So whether you're here or whether you're there, or whether you're in Paris or Afghanistan, it's one and the same thing. Do you understand? One place will make you just as happy as another place. Why? Because you're there. And where you are, well, that's where it is. That's where it's happening. And so when I think about my friend Vitalik, I've never really told him about all this, but he's had really a great influence in my life. If you take somebody like that and you throw him into an unknown situation, because of the mentality and because of the way of thinking, before even being thrown into the unknown situation, they already have not an opinion, but they have knowledge that not only is everything going to be okay and everything's going to be really cool, but it'll be beyond this. It'll be interesting, it'll be exciting, and I'll meet a lot of friends. And this is kind of what Dostoevsky said about Alyosha. They said Alyosha, he's really this special kind of young man because he had a very special attitude. And the way that he was with people, the way he would just give things without even thinking. Because he knew, you give, you get. And so if you would take someone like Alyosha or Vitalik and throw them into wherever, Shanghai or Tokyo, where they don't speak the language, Dostoevsky, wrote, what would happen to them? And he said after 1 month, they would be surrounded by a really strong, tight circle of friends. People who want to protect them. People who wouldn't even want them to leave because they really want to protect them. That means very, very good at meeting friends. Being very open, very transparent. And so after a couple of weeks or a month, you'd be surrounded by friends. People who love you so much that they wouldn't want you to go. And the very fact that you already have that relationship with them would mean that you also don't want to go. And this is all caused by your attitude. And then wait a little while, and wait till a year comes by, and then what happens? After a year, you already speak the language, and you have an incredibly strong circle of friends. You're already practically family. And after that, you don't want to go, not left or right. And give yourself a couple of years, and if you were to have to leave that place, not only would you be in tears, but literally hundreds of people would be in tears because they don't want you to leave. That's the kind of person Vitalik is. And so it comes to the point where it doesn't doesn't matter what he believes in. It doesn't really matter what books that he's reading. It has to do with, the result of all of this. And the result of all of this is that he has this attitude that cannot be swayed by momentary, like by the passing moment. And the passing moment being the economy, the politics of the day, the way that you're supposed to, look, the way that you're supposed to act, the new career that's opening up that you're going to dedicate 30, 40 years of the rest of your life to. It's not just Vitalik. A lot of my friends are like Vitalik in that they're beyond all of this. And they've taught me a lot just by me being with them and watching them, that they have something that's permanent. They have something that's cannot be pushed or swayed by anything momentarily. They have something very solid. And that solidity that they have is not only has been in them for a very long time, it's something that they'll never lose. And so they have it here, and it's producing for them just an unbelievable result. And the secret to all of this would be, again, like I said, a giving of yourself, and a giving of yourself to something greater than yourself. And it could be the person that's like sitting right in front of you, or, like I tell my students who are open for something spontaneous. They don't have a whole 15-year plan, but they're very, very open to something very mysterious. Like they're open for a mythological adventure, not just to read about, but for them to be an actual character in this world, and for them to actually be a myth or a poem. How can you be a myth or a poem? Well, you have to give yourself to this world in such a way that your whole life feels like it is a type of poem. And you could just see one thing leading into something else and leading into something else. And soon the ultimate question you ask is, who's writing all of this? Who's writing the book or the story of my life? I've given myself to something. And now all of these things are happening. And, who's writing this? It's a huge question. It's a giant question. I can't even get in it. I can't get into it now. But what I wanted to talk about is this attitude. How many of you that are listening to me, how many of you have this attitude that you're so open to something spontaneous and you have lost yourself to such an extent that I can take you, bodily, physically take you, and take you to Tegucigalpa. And most people don't even know where that is. And I say, okay, say goodbye to everybody. You're going to go to a place where you have never been before. Well, let's just say the south of India. And that's going to be the beginning of your education. That's going to be the very start, the foundation of your education. And what I have seen, like in my experience of traveling, is sometimes I travel alone, and sometimes I travel with groups of people, and sometimes I travel to countries for years at a time. Last time that I came to Russia, I thought I was going to come to Russia for 1 year. I ended up staying 10 years. I went to Ukraine. I thought I was going to stay like 2 years. I ended up staying 5 years. And so when you're open to something spontaneous, then you don't buy, literally speaking, you don't buy a round-trip ticket. You go and you just keep your eyes open and watch what happens. And when you read mythology, there's something called hidden hands. Hidden hands are these secret helpers that come out of nowhere. Normally in a myth, they come out of the forest. And as soon as you need something, boom, they have it for you. And what I'm saying is that when you give yourself to something like this, to a type of adventure like this, and the adventure is not separate at all from your life, you'll see that all of these things actually start happening and it works. Hidden hands come out. All of a sudden people are there to help you. All of a sudden people almost have the mentality that they have been expecting you. That they've been expecting you for a long time. And they even ask you, what took you so long to come here? It's really, really amazing and very mysterious. And when you experience this, you start to ask yourself, wow, where did this come from? How did I end up here? Just think about how it went from here to here to here to here, and then meeting this person, meeting that person, and now I'm here doing this. It's totally mysterious. And you could only get the feeling of this by, like I was saying, making yourself transparent, meaning opening yourself to something transcendent, to something beyond yourself. And then that something that is transcendent, it's like welcoming something into your life. If you don't welcome it, it will not come. But if you welcome something into your life, such as adventure, well, then it comes. And then you start to see how all of these things fall together and how they work in your life. So that's the end of another story. And next week I'll try to give you another one, a better one. Thanks.